Hi, everybody, and welcome to our next podcast of Action Big Ideas, proudly brought to you by the Thought Leader Academy. It's Giselle and myself here with you today, Yakin. Giselle has a vast wealth of experience in training and development over health and safety and nonprofit organizations. We want to talk to nonprofits. We want to help them found their nonprofits. We want to help them grow their nonprofits. We want to help them get grants and all kinds of resources and opportunities that are available to them. We personally work with a handful of nonprofits. We can't work with all of them. So what we've done is created this podcast in order to share that knowledge across a lot more nonprofits than we are able to work with. Giselle, thanks for making time for me this morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, and thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about who's here. We're going to talk about founding and restarting the academy, where this whole strategy came from, our EdTech, and then where do the nonprofits come in?
Good day, everybody. My name is Giselle, and I'm very happy to be here and speak to you all. Thank you, Yakin, for the opportunity. First of all, last year, I think it was about September, October, so it must have been about a year ago, I saw this ad that said, I can't remember the exact words, but I think it was something like people, if you have a passion or are you passionate about training or development, please contact us or something. So I contacted you and I filled in a form because it was certain questions I had to put about myself, my background, and then there was a recruitment process, and then I got a letter to say I've been accepted to join the Thought Leader Academy 2024. I was extremely excited because I have met with Yakin, and he has just got the most amazing thought trails and ideas, and I really, really could just it resonates with me, and I could really see a future of learning from this man, which I did a lot. And we then started the Thought Leader Academy, and we then had a discussion, a pre discussion, and all of a sudden the idea someone also mentioned working with NPOs and be part of a solution and not a problem in the country. And I think we've got a big opportunity ahead of us. If we do this right, we could really benefit a lot of the NPO organizations in South Africa, but not only South Africa, we could most probably go beyond our borders and move into Africa. As you all know, NPO's biggest or one of the biggest hurdles that they have to cross is fundraising, because most of the NPOs are a lot of heart, a lot of passion,
Yeah.
with very little funding or capital to start with.
Resources, infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we discussed our Thought Leader Academy course and how we can then maybe also incorporate somehow working with NPOs and assisting them.
Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, I'm Yakin. If you haven't seen my bio video, I'm an entrepreneur. I've worked in contact centers, I've worked in marketing, and I worked in software development. The last business I was involved in, I sold, which was a VR and game development company. And now I'm co-founder of Architect, and we specialize in EdTech. And then I'm the founder of Rockstar Consulting, which is a consultancy firm for training and consulting. And that's the company that houses the Thought Leader Academy. Then Giselle was one of the recruits into the Thought Leader Academy that met all of our criteria. Unfortunately, it wasn't open to the public in the sense of everyone can be accepted, even though that's where we advertised. So people had to meet our criteria and not just, tick all the boxes, but match with chemistry and be like-minded. So Giselle was one of the people that came through quite strongly, and has completed the academy, and now we're in the phase where we have all the knowledge on how to build a training company and how to monetize training and development. And we wanted to work with nonprofits because of the reasons that Giselle mentioned. And aside from that, Giselle also has a vast wealth of experience in health and safety and nonprofit organization development, having worked with a fortune of them. So that's who's here. And those were the introductions. Sorry, I should have been on this slide for the introductions. And the Thought Leader Academy was founded for passion, from passion for passionate people. And it happened in 2014, where I wanted to give people the opportunity that I never had to enter the training and coaching industry with ease. So I posted an ad. Back in the day, that was Gumtree. And after it getting 1,000 hits and a few hundred applications, I realized that a lot of people were stuck in the wrong job and had no issue with working after hours to build their dream business. So that spread from Cape Town to Durban to Joburg. And I unfortunately got really busy with business, and that had to fall by the wayside, my passion project. And in 2024, after concluding the sale of the software development company, I decided I can now return to passion, to my roots, to training and development, and helping other entrepreneurs on my journey. So that's marked the relaunch. And the Academy overview is, we first teach all the candidates about life alignment. First we've got to get our lives in order before we get our business aligned. And after those were aligned, what was not happening in the previous academies was there was no or little follow through from our side with mentorship and helping people actually get into deals and structure deals and partnerships. So that's what we're doing differently this year. So the overview and the variances would look like this. So we've had upgrades, and after the training is complete and you train on weekends, there are more options for your business. So you don't have to just open a training and coaching practice anymore. We now have opportunities to open digital marketing companies and content digitization companies, and each thought leader that gets their business to 100K, we'll put them in touch with our business funding partners. So how the academy works is like this. These are all the parties or stakeholders or players that are involved. So Rockstar Consulting, Rockstar Consulting plus the training facilitators equals the Thought Leader Academy. So Rockstar Consulting facilitates and supports the trainers and the nonprofit organizations. We've completed the training, and now the part of the strategy is to partner with organizations, and we've selected NPOs, and we would provide training to corporates and the community. We would also co-create courses, not just with the thought leaders, but with the nonprofits. So like Giselle mentioned, these nonprofits already have a lot of heart. They already have an intention. They know what they want to train and they want to give out to the community because they know what's lacking. And just like my story, it came from their pain. It came from pain, a problem. I can solve it in this way. So ideally, we're looking for nonprofits that are education facing. We would take their courses, we'd co-create with them, make our EdTech available, and then as a team all together, we would then approach community and corporate clients so that they could actually buy or sponsor the training and development. Their benefits would be, it's a feel-good transaction, so it's really good for PR. It could be a tax benefit or CSR. So on the financial side, the CFO will be smiling when you look at high-quality training and development coming into the business in this fashion. And then Giselle, I think it would be nice if you could talk about, your experience with nonprofit organizations and how the strategy would actually solve a lot of problems.
Thank you very much. I sometimes feel very young and sometimes very old at the same time. I started teaching because my background was I've studied education. So I started teaching at a college, private college. Then I went into a public school Now, both of those entities are registered as NPOs because a school is a non-profit organization. So my start originally was on a non-profit environment where I know that the most important thing is to have money. And if you look at the school environment, it's really important to have enough money to not only pay for the staff or to subsidize on what the government is able to give as salaries, but also to develop the sports and the culture and the social environment for the children during their school time. I was very privileged to work at a boys or teach at a boys' school, and there I've learned the importance of sport, academic, culture, and they all have to fit in, because in the end you have to have a well-rounded person at the end of matric. From there, I went into a full-on non-profit organization that did training and development in the first aid and home-based care environment.
Right.
And I've there we were very lucky to have an international donor relationship, which made it easier, not always better, but easier to have the funding available. And then in that same space of time, I've trained a lot of instructors. We then went into the new, it was at the time when training was changing over from just doing short courses to actually have proper assessment, proper moderation, proper verification in place so that someone can get a qualification, not just a piece of paper, but something they can use in their everyday life. And the difficult part of that was we used to do short courses of first aid and home-based care training, and all of a sudden it had to be a full qualification. So I've been through the whole development stage in that environment. I don't know if I use the word environment too many times.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
But I'm very passionate. I love training. I love teaching. I love sharing information and giving someone the opportunity to become their best self. Sorry.
I love that.
And then I've met a lot of NPOs that are small NPOs. They are working with in their communities. They work with hundreds of people, and a lot of the times the founding member pays for everything.
Yeah.
So they can do so much, but they're only able to do so little due to the fact that they are really cash strapped. So cash flow is a problem. If you have to feed 500 people and you only have money for your household food, but you stretch it out so you can actually feed 500 people once a week, it becomes very difficult. And that's where, when we had a first discussion about making it possible or making it an opportunity or giving an opportunity for an NPO to team up with us and get the benefit of fundraising through something they already have, so they don't have to acquire new skills or work on a new program. They already have the information and the content, and you amazing people can change it into digital information or games or things that could be so much more user friendly, especially not only in the community, but also in the corporate environment. Because you find that corporates have to do training. It's part of their skills development program yearly. They have to pay skills development levies. And a lot of corporate companies lose out on the tax benefits they can get from it, as well as the BEE benefits they can have from it, because they do not understand how to use it always. So if we can combine the knowledge that we have and assist an NPO to have a I would like to say continuous influx of finances, but a corporate company which is for profit, and they understand the benefit they can reap from the relationship, I think it would be a win-win situation. Big companies understand the CSI and the CSR responsibilities, as well as the benefits for the BE certification yearly, but smaller companies don't, and they still pay the levy, but they don't get the benefit from it. And I think it's important that we just become a conduit or what's the word? Conduct.
Conduit.
Conduits, yes. To just marry the two and make it work.
Thanks so much for that, Giselle. I think
Pleasure.
you've touched on so many important points there. And in our last podcast, we said that we'll end these podcasts by giving people questions that help them, develop either themselves or their business or their nonprofits. And our last topic was more about the fear of failure. So there were questions about self-discovery that we popped into an ink thought exercise. So I think here we would, do a discussion around what are the things that NPOs can be looking at as being small or large. But I have a few questions here that I'd love to ask you. My experience working with nonprofits is quite limited in comparison to yours. It was more voluntary, and I did a series of these sort of a little tour around the Western Cape, going to different areas and doing workshops, half-day workshops, teaching nonprofits how to fundraise, because I saw that while they had the best intentions and even products and sometimes even infrastructure, there were a few things missing that that businesses normally have that allows them to animate those into the market. So I found that preparing content in and around just basic business operations, because a nonprofit is a business. It's the only variance would be you don't get a dividend or profit.
Yeah.
And the thing with knowledge is that the wonderful and frightening thing is when we don't know, there's nothing we can do about it. And it's if you look at youngsters, that don't know about tax, and then you learn about tax, and you learn you can actually get a rebate coming back to you. It's like free money. Without the knowledge, you wouldn't know that. And I'm sure there are tons of nonprofits out there that don't know about so many grants and so many, strategies and things that they could be utilizing and applying in-house to actually move them forward a lot faster than they're moving now. The technology, also speaks to not just the youth, but adults and how we learn. So on the tech side, where we have sponsorship as well is from Architect, and we convert traditional training into game-based learning. So you'd have a textbook, we'd convert it into a game-based or experience or VR or AR or interactive. But a story or game-based is not just the future, it's currently how we learn. We have to learn how to read to learn from books. When something's visual or a diagram, we get it, So we are visual creatures. It just makes sense that our learning is in a visual format. And we have platform sponsorship that we would share with our nonprofit partners. So I think from here, Giselle, we should for whomever is listening, whether they're nonprofits, whether they are wanting to become a thought leader or start their own training business or whatever it might be, let's help by providing some questions and maybe some answers or some guidelines in and around this. So I think let's start with the main theme for today, which is nonprofit organizations. So I've met a lot that weren't even registered. So can you just talk us through, perhaps starting a nonprofit, from the intention where people are, and then where they actually need to head to, and where they, what are their stumbling points? I know it's a fully loaded question, but yeah, if you could just discuss, in your experience, what you've seen from starting of intention to actually having a proper nonprofit functioning.
Okay. So there's three really important things to know from the beginning for a non-profit organization. So you can register. So the first one is the registration. You have to register as a legal entity. So you can register as an MPO or an MPC.
Right.
MPO is non-profit organization. You register through the Department of Social Development, and afterwards I might just say DSD as a short as I speak. And the second one is the NPC, which is a non-profit company.
Right.
Now, both of those entities have tax benefits. So a non-profit organization is automatically tax exempt. So they don't pay
Right.
income tax. But that is because all their income is sorry.
Uh,
Oh, okay. No, I
We'll
just wanted
cut
to.
it out in post.
Okay, just hold on. Okay, so let's go that. They registered with the Department of Social Development, which is DSD for short, and they apply for an NPO registration number. It's a 6-digit number with NPO at the end. And once they have that, they give that to the SARS tax exempt unit. They are written up on a book to say they don't pay taxes on any income, because all the income is supposed to be reinvested into the company
Yes.
or the organization. They also do not pay a skills development levy due to the fact that they are a non-profit organization. So there's 2 tax benefits already done as soon as your registration is in place. You get an original certificate from the DSD and you keep that very, very safe. You never lose it.
Okay.
Yes. Then the MPC side, you register with CIPRO, which is the company's, company's.
It's CIPC now, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
CIPC. Yeah, it used to be CIPRO. Sorry, yeah, CIPC, which is companies.
Intellectual property something, but yeah.
That one, yes.
Yeah.
Then you get a NPC number instead of a PTY Limited or it used to be closed corporations, but they don't exist anymore really. You
Yeah.
can be a sole proprietor, and that's I think a 13-digit number that you get. And an MPC, if you can prove that you are going to work with beneficiaries in a community, you can also apply for tax exemption. If you cannot prove that, you will have to pay income tax on the income of the business. An MPC, I think the biggest benefit is that they do not report to the Department of Social Development, but they report to the CIPC. You have to do the 6 monthly as well as yearly registration. Well, just feeding back what has happened in the last 6 months. So it's like financials that you send with your registration number.
Sorry if I can
Yes.
jump in there. I wanted to ask about this. So I'm part of a nonprofit organization as well, Connect to Heart
Yeah.
Foundation, and we're going to be working with 3 others, Simonier and then the other 2 others.
Mhm.
They always mention, and more like you would see this in a board meeting, that there has to be minutes for everything.
Yes.
Where do those minutes go, and why is that important?
Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the MPO part.
Right.
MPO business of the MPO organizations have to report so annually. It's around about June, July. So between June and August, you have to send your financial statements that's been audited back to the DSD, and then they send you a letter to say they've received it and you are in good standing and you can continue with the year.
Right.
But because there is no ownership in an MPO, it doesn't belong to one person. It is a non-ownership entity. If any decision is made in an MPO, so if there's a new board member that comes on board, or there's a change in management, there must be a meeting and you have to have an agenda for the meeting. You must have the minutes of the meeting, And the minutes of the meeting must be signed by the chairperson of the board
Okay.
membership. So if, for instance, you want to, and this is quite important because it's resolutions that needs to be passed on a meeting. So you must have a meeting resolution. It must be signed by all the board members that were attending the meeting. The biggest reason for that is MPO money is public money.
Okay. Okay.
You cannot spend public money on private
Expenses.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. I got you.
So, and that is the reason, because people give money out of their free will and out of their hearts and whatever to an MPO, and that money belongs to the beneficiaries and not to an entity like a person. So
Understood.
the money that comes in is spent only on the MPO. Part of it could be salaries, but the salaries can never exceed 5% of the total income, which is quite scary.
It is. It is. And I'm sure there's a lot of like procedures put in place to avoid corruption. You know, maybe
Yeah,
that's also why they need to have all their meetings documented and their ducks in
yes.
a row. I mean,
Mm.
you know, a business for profit also gets, you know, random audits and has to submit an annual return. I
Yes.
suppose, and this is just my assumption, is that when a business is non-profit, they have a few more hoops to jump through to prove that they're actually not for profit. So perhaps that's why there's, you know, all
Yeah.
this additional information.
It's very stringent regulations that
Yes.
they have to fit, and you
But
have
I
to
can
answer everything.
but I can understand why. I mean, there are a lot of benefits and opportunities that are available to nonprofit organizations, grants, sponsorships, etc. And I mean, the nonprofits that work with us, I mean, they know that firsthand. The Google grants is the first thing that we want to initiate for them, so they have an advertising budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, Giselle, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Sorry, I interrupted you with another question about
No,
that
it's cool.
administration. But yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to add about, you
Okay.
know, taking
So
that NPO from start?
I think the most important is you've got the person with the idea.
Right.
Then the person with the idea needs to get support in the community that they work in. So they have to then form a executive committee that will assist that person to manage the not the business, because the person with the idea manages the business, but to make sure that they do everything above board financially, as well as working with people that works with them. Now, as you have said earlier, that you were involved with MPOs as a volunteer, most of the people that are working for MPOs are volunteers. They don't get paid for their service. That is fantastic. It's also very difficult, because where you have a group of staff members, you tell them what they have to do. And if they don't comply with that, you will take disciplinary procedures against them, or you can do training and development with them, because that's what you have to do because you're their boss. But in an MPO environment, you have amazing people working with you, not for you. But if they don't want to come to work, they won't have to. If they do things that they feel that's the right thing to do and it's really not so good, you can only very nicely tell them, maybe you shouldn't do that again. Because they don't work for you, you don't have any say. And another thing that I've also learned over the years is people have an issue with money that they give. And if it's not specified when you receive a donation where the money has to go to, the discretion of the MPO will use that money where they need it. Now, a lot of people lots of people are very comfortable with that, but you do get some people that gets quite upset if, for instance, you donate shoes and clothes to people that are homeless. And the people go and sell the shoes and clothes because they need cigarettes or they want to buy beer.
Goodness,
And
yeah.
then it becomes an issue. Now, my biggest rule with that is, remember, as soon as a gift leaves your hands, it's not yours anymore.
Mm, I think that's a nice way to deal with it because, before we start taking action and having thoughts, we get a feeling. So you've got
Yes.
to, take care of that feeling, or feed the right wolf before that arises. I think you've touched on something very important. Volunteer employees, you can't really manage them. And what nonprofits want to do is get into the business space where they actually have people on a contract and on a salary, so they can actually manage,
Yeah.
and delegate properly, and also fall within labor law. How does labor law work in a nonprofit compared to a business?
Okay. So it works exactly the same way.
Same? Okay.
Same way, except, as I said, volunteers don't touch. But as
Yes,
soon as
yes.
a organization either part pay or pay in kind, which means that you get benefits, which, although it might not be monetary, you get, say, for instance, there's a vegetable garden,
Right.
and they give their volunteers monthly 10 tomatoes and a bunch of carrots and
Right.
17 potatoes. There's a monetary value to that. So they have to write it up as it's paid in kind, and then put they have to put some kind of value to
Value.
it. But that's completely out. But as soon as you start paying your employees a salary, so they become an employee,
Yes.
they have to pay tax. So you have
Yes.
to deduct income tax. You have to give them benefits. So you must have,
UIF.
you have to take UIF off. That needs to be paid over. Now, a lot of NPOs can't afford to pay for a pension fund or provident fund, and they cannot afford to pay part of the medical aid. So those two ones are sort of, if they can pay it, they pay it. If they can't, they don't. But other benefits, they must get their 30 days sick leave in 3-year cycle. They must get their 10, 12, 15, 20, how many days leave a year?
Sick leave. Yeah.
No,
Annual leave, sick leave,
yeah. So
family
they must have all
responsibility.
that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So all that is legally required, and they have to stay within it, as well as taking disciplinary procedures or actions against a staff member. Stealing is, I think, one of the biggest things that NPOs deal with, because
Shame.
they do not pay people big salaries. So people might feel that they can justify, if you've got 30 dozen of eggs because you got a donation from a farm, I'm sure you won't miss 12.
Wow.
So I'll put it in a pot and I'll take it home.
Wow, but those are actually assets that were received,
Yes, yes. And
products. It's
there's a monetary value to it. So
exactly.
so I know of people that have lost, that's been dismissed because they stole 3 eggs. I know people have lost their jobs because they stole a bread. I
Shame.
know of people that lost their jobs because they misplaced 250 rand.
Choice.
So,
Oh my
so
goodness.
you work exactly the same. Is there must be a rule. They must know the rule. So they must sign a code of conduct. They must sign policies and procedures that they've read and understood it. Once the rule is in place, you must have proof that they understood the rule and they broke it. So the rule must be in place. They must understand the rule. And then the third part is they have broken rule and you've got proof of it. So those 3 things, as soon as that's answered, you can take disciplinary actions against the person. So it works exactly the same way. They also can go to the CCMA, and
All the employee
discuss
rights.
all
Yes,
their
yes,
rights.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. So I think thank you so much for that, Giselle.
a pleasure.
From my side, in the workshops that I did in those tours, if I could condense the information,
Mm,
I would say that first I speak to the founders And I say, as a founder, you need to understand that you want to do this and you don't want to be remunerated for it, because that's how pure the intention is. However, if you don't look after yourself, the people around you suffer.
Yes.
If you don't look after yourself, the people around you suffer, including all of the people that need this nonprofit organization. So from learning from so many other entrepreneurs, pay yourself first. And I know that feels selfish. You're like, oh my goodness, I need to do this and I need to do that, and I would rather pay somebody else than myself. However, from being burned so many times and from seeing it so many times with entrepreneurs and in my own businesses, sometimes the best thing to do is just share it amongst everyone, but not give nothing to yourself, or make sure the business is paid first. Now, as a nonprofit, that is you. That is you, the person that's actually making everything happen. So first is look after yourself, otherwise other people will suffer. Second, you are running a business. It's a nonprofit business, but it is a business. And in a business, you would have a lot of moving parts, but if you want to simplify it, you have your service and then you have your audience. So in exchange for the service, there needs to be a transfer. So if it was a donation, then it's understood, but there still needs to be a value attached to it. If you are selling education, there needs to be a price per course. So there's got to be product and service delivery and then an exchange. Now, if you break those two things up, you normally get a solopreneur or founder of a nonprofit being everyone and everything. So you are sales, marketing, finance, admin, etc., etc. But if you simplify it in this way and say, okay, I've got a product and then there's service delivery for exchange, I just need to focus on those two things. You'll slowly start to mind map who are the people you need next in order to scale. So yes, you are doing everything all at once, but as you're doing it, you're understanding these are separate, and you bring in a person, they'll take that off your workload. And then if you're doing sales and marketing, the next person that comes in can take off sales or marketing, and then that's one less thing to do. Now, bringing in more people incur more cost, but bringing in more people allow you to scale and earn more. Profit or non-profit, the principles are the same. And then I think it's important to know and understand your benefits of being a nonprofit. I mean, those items and points that Giselle mentioned, I didn't even know about half of those things. I know about tax exemption, but how does it work and why is it there? And how do you qualify? I mean, those are important things to know as a founder or manager of a nonprofit organization. And I will not discount the power of collaboration and community. So, I mean, that's testimony to what we are doing here at the Rockstar Academy, at the Thought Leader Academy, under Rockstar Consulting, is collaborating with nonprofits because we know there's a need in the market there. Training and development is an industry that will always be there and always be required. So we found joining the dots with our passion, what people need, and their knowledge, that gave birth to our strategy, and that's what we're rolling out here. So those are the pieces of advice I'd give to founders of nonprofits. If you're starting out or if you're still in the startup phase, look after yourself. Understand that there are different departments that you will grow into as you bring on more people, but at the moment, keep it separate, even if that means managing this in your calendar as being the marketing person on a Monday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then you become the training facilitator for 3 days in the week, etc., etc.
That's clever.
So that's how solopreneurs, would normally manage it. And if they are not managing it that way, then I will tell you now, you'll feel overwhelmed. You'll feel like your efforts are not going anywhere. You won't feel like you've accomplished very much for the day. And these are, I don't want to say just utterly wrong, but it's not the whole truth. It's not the whole truth. When we track the things we do, our mind automatically looks at all the things we haven't done. And then we start feeling and thinking from that perspective. Give yourself a break And how you do that is by actually tracking all the things that you're doing. You're making a contribution. And you wouldn't have had these ideas if you didn't have the ability to make them come true.
Very true.
Giselle,
Yes.
I wanted to ask, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Piece of good knowledge that I would like to share with an NPO is whatever you do, keep track of everything. And I really like the idea that you said now you're a marketing person, 10 to 12, you do this. So I think that's a very clever breakdown of your own rule or own role in your company, organization. Because if you do not keep track, you won't be able to report good, or you won't be able to explain to the DSD what you do and what you've done over the last year. And that could put your registration in jeopardy. And that could really become your biggest downfall. Not because you haven't done anything, but because you haven't kept track with what good you have done with everybody. And I think if you just make little notes, take a diary, write in your diary every day what you've done. So when someone asks you, what have you been doing over the last year? You can say, oh, wait, hold on, I'll show you. And as soon as you can
Yes.
show them, you are fine. But it's people that can't show what you've been doing and where the money has gone, whether it's 5 Rand or whether it's 5 million Rand. It's public money. And as soon as you play with public money, you are putting yourself in a very difficult position if you can't report well on it. So reporting is really, really important.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Giselle. And I'd like to just
Pleasure.
echo that into our personal lives.
Yes.
It takes us perhaps 5 minutes at the end of the day to write down what we've did, or perhaps, at the start of the day, what we did yesterday. And when you refer to those notes, the feeling of incomplete or not accomplishing enough or not moving fast enough will begin to dissolve. That's Ink Thoughts. Ink Thoughts is what we coined as the name of the process of writing, but writing to expand thought and move the non-physical from the mental space into the physical. And we utilize this first to start, but writing our goals and understanding our strengths, our developmental areas. And then that evolved into actually writing in order to change our mind, to move from negative thinking to positive thinking. And then that writing became business strategy and so much more. So we can't emphasize how wonderful it is and important it is to be writing. And the last thing I'd like to say about Ink Thoughts is, the power of it is our conscious mind can only hold a very short list of items, very much like a shopping list. Once it exceeds 3 or 5 items, we get lost and we forget things. So when you're thinking about something that's important and you write down the first 3 things, you want to go beyond that level of thinking. And only writing would allow you to do that. So that's the power of Ink Thoughts. Giselle, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning and the value that you added to everyone that's listening. I really appreciate it.
Again, thank you very much for having me. And I am looking forward to our next one.
Yes, I look forward to the next one. Okay.